Great to have you with us. Now, first story, the governing New Patriotic Party, NPP, goes to primaries on June 20, and already aspiring candidates and new entrants to the race are optimistic they will cross the hurdle at all costs. Interacting with Roland Walker on the AM show, aspiring candidates for Ejiso in the Ashanti region, John Kuma and Tangoba Abayagi for Navrongo Central, say they have what it takes to not only bring more development to their respective constituencies, but also topple the incumbents.
Well, it's all constant engagements. Ejiso has a lot of economic advantages. You know, we have the Buankra Inland Port, which has potential to employ over thousands of young people in Ashanti region, of course, especially Ejiso. We also have Bonure with Kente. You know, now the global fabric is Kente. Yesterday, did you see the Democrats kneeling down in their Kente? And of course, that spoke volume about what we can do with Kente. Last year, we did a year of return, and we had over 1 million visitors into Ghana. So if we position Kente production strategically, we can create more economic opportunities in Ejiso constituency. Of course, it's also a farming community. If you leave the outskirts of Ejiso, many of the residents are into farming. So we also have to look at how we empower the farming community. And of course, you know, a lot of young people who have completed university and tertiary institutions, they are looking for job opportunities among many other things. So, and then we also have very good talent for football in Ejiso. So in my programs, I have discussed how we are going to also identify good young talent and push them into the various national football teams, among many others. So yes, I'm engaging a lot in the various sectors. And of course, also a traditional town. You know, the Yasantwa, you cannot talk about Ejiso without talking about traditions and Yasantwa and her role in Ghanaian politics. So I am also very close to the chiefs and the opinion leaders of the place, and I've explained my vision and programs with them. And I strongly believe that they have bought into it. And going forward, one key research we did in Ejiso in terms of the community needs was sanitation, lack of suitable public toilet places in Ejiso. So I have been able to lobby ahead of it to put about 30 toilet facilities in 30 communities in Ejiso constituency. So yes.
Congo as part of the region, which is also part of the northern belt of the country, has its own peculiar needs. You know, we are in the savannah area, which means that we have just one rainfall a year. We have very dry seasons, very hot weathers. Generally, the basic needs of the people is water. Water, electricity, good road networks, schools, furniture for schools, and of course, now we have the free SHS, which means that more of our people can go to school. But zooming down to my constituency, I may be a small fry in the scheme of affairs, but I think that I've also done a bit. So far, I've provided about 14 boreholes to various communities. I've lobbied for several things to be brought to the constituency, and they provided furniture, renovated several projects here and there. So as you go around these communities, they tell you what they need. Some you can immediately provide, and those that we can immediately provide, I can assure you that we have done that at community levels, providing fridges for Chips Compound and others. Those that we can't, and when I say we, I mean Team Tanguba, we have our team, you know, those that Team Tanguba cannot provide, and we know that we can lobby elsewhere to bring them down. We do that. One thing I'm good at is lobbying for projects. I'm very good at that. I'll push and push till you give it to me. Since I made my intention clear, I can assure you that I've covered more ground than Kofi Addo himself has covered, and he knows I've covered more ground, and I've covered more grounds more times than he knows. As John Kuma said, it's not about money, it's not about strength, it's not about power, it's about engagement of the people that matter and giving your message to people that matter, and them they're buying into your message and accepting you as a better alternative to the current person. So he may be a strong character. He may be an MP. He may have been minister for several portfolios, but trust me, big people fall. And I can assure you that come 20th of this month, Kofi Ada will fall.
Now, speaking of the EC's legal woes, the Director of Elections for the National Democratic Congress, NDC, Elvis Efie-Ankra, says his party will also be officially challenging the exclusion of voter ID cards from the registration process in court.
It's going to be complex because you need to fill forms. It will make the process delay, and therefore it will make the entire process more difficult. So we're saying that it will be extremely impossible for the EC to register 17 million people plus within a month. It's a practical impossibility in a rainy season in a COVID-19 era. By the time we are finished, God forbid, the infection rate would have jumped to 100,000.
And that's a point that the NDC has started making. In fact, your minority in Parliament has started making this morning.
We've been saying this right from get-go.
And well, it's now coming from Parliament. The angle that this is going to create more.
It's been one of the reasons. It's been one of the reasons that we've articulated.
That they're going to observe all the protocols.
It still does not. It doesn't make sense. On your screens right now, you're seeing people gathered to go and register. Okay.
No, you are seeing that here, but we did put that on at the point. Those are old visuals anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We know how registration occurs in this country. If you talk about 25 people within the perimeter, you can have control of people within the perimeter. But what about outside the perimeter? If you're doing 6 days of registration in a cluster, people will come the first day by their so-called pilot or demonstration. Only 40, 50 people will be able to register. The next day, the number increase exponentially. By the third or fourth day, there is going to be chaos. Okay. This is not a prophecy.
You're going to give me a particular legal
42 says every citizen of 18 years or some has a right to vote and is entitled. You see the language, the right to vote. So that right, you can decide not to exercise. But when it comes to registration, it is your entitlement. And therefore, the state, which is the Electoral Commission paid by us, must put in place every measure, systems, mechanisms, processes, and procedures to ensure that that right is exercised. Then quickly, 45.
I need to wrap up.
45, quick one. The Electoral Commission shall have the following functions: to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. But what people are not paying attention to undertake programs for the expansion of the registration of voters. You ask yourself, by these measures that have been put in place, by these unreasonable measures, will it lead to an expansion of the registration of voters? The answer is no. Many people do not have their Ghana card. Many people do not have passports. The process of guaranteeing is going to make it very cumbersome. And if you look at the demographics from Bono all the way up, it's incredible if you look at the numbers. And imagine a situation where we had 17 million people on the voters roll, and because of the EC's own intransigence, they go ahead and do this COVID-19, and then at the end of the day, you have less people on the register.
So you're looking to challenge this new law?
Oh, we will do whatever it takes, and because it's just not. We want peace in this country. Electoral disputes have led to serious consequences in other countries, and we don't want that to happen. And that is why we keep on talking to the citizens. And thank God, many more people are supporting our position. Many more people have seen that the EC is being unreasonable, is being arbitrary, and we have Supreme Court cases, we have precedents, and we are confident that at the end of the day, the will of the people will prevail.
Now, Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay says Parliament should be proud of how yesterday's vote, on the report of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee on the EC's controversial CI went. His comments follow red flags by minority members Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa and James Kluchi-Aveji that although 202 MPs were recorded present in the House yesterday, only 198 voted, questioning the whereabouts of the vote of the other 4. Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us with more. So, Joseph, do we know where the other 4 went? Joe, do we now understand why we saw the shortfall of 4 votes?
So the explanation that's coming from the majority leader is that there were situations of some MPs who were present at the beginning of the debate and the conversation when it comes to general proceedings and even issues having to do with the CI. But by the time that the voting time came, which was sometime around 2 p.m. thereabout, even after the House started sitting around 11, they had left the chamber. And the majority leader mentioned specifically the Ascent Central MP, Kennedy Japong, as well as 3 others that he explained were present in the morning, but were not present when eventually the voting was taking place. And so for him, that's the explanation on how come there was the shortfall and not because anything untoward happened. And the speaker rightly backed his claim and indicated that raising questions about the votes that were cast and how the results came may end up creating a wrong impression in the minds of the public. But for him, the process that unfolded yesterday is something that Parliament should be proud of and other institutions should actually learn from when it comes to democratic processes.
So tell us what else transpired on the floor today.
A number of other things. There was a question to the Minister for Health by Roxin Dafiamekbo, who is the NDC MP for North Dai, asking how much it cost the nation to launch the COVID-19 tracking app. And on the floor, there was a reaction from Bernard Okoboy, who is the Deputy Minister for Health, who indicated that the question was directed in the wrong direction and that this is rather a question that we should have had the Minister for Health, not the Minister for Health, but the Minister for Communications responding to. Mr. Dafiamekbo is not exactly happy and thinks national resources have been wasted even in getting the minister to come respond to the question. Apart from that, on the presence of Parliament, Isaac Adongo, who is the NDC MP on the Finance Committee, has been commenting on the issue having to do with Unit Pass and them taking over the running of the port from GCNet. He says the nation lost about 100 million Ghana cedis in late April as a result of the transition, which he says has been mismanaged, and wants GCNet to go back to their work. And the final bit, Jimsat Galga, who is the ranking member on the Committee on Defense and Interior, has been addressing the media, and he says the recent incident with the arrest of the pastor and all is government overreaching and the security agencies, in his words, misbehaving and virtually infringing on the rights of people, which Ghanaians should not allow. So he's currently still addressing the media, asking government to respect the fundamental human rights of ordinary Ghanaians.
Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, for those updates from the House. And let's go to the NDC headquarters, where former President John Mahama is speaking at an event to commemorate 28 years of the party's existence.
Democracy where business losing their businesses, Ghana needs new ways of listening to one another and a new sense of unity. Ghanaians are tired of the tensions associated with the parochial governance style of Nana Akufo-Addo. My brothers and sisters, it is time to unite our country once again as one people and resume our journey towards building our common future. Is that possible? It is possible. The NDC to deliver that and more. My brothers and sisters, this year we have the 8th election since the advent of our 4th Republic. Never have we in the history of this 4th Republic experienced such a strange situation where 6 months to an election we are all unsure what register we're going to use for the vote. It has never happened in the 4th Republic. Never have we in the history of the 4th Republic our population threatened to be disenfranchised, the bungling inefficiency and perceived partiality of our once revered electoral. We all await the hearing in court tomorrow to determine that we have a flawed or we have an election that we have confidence in, that the will of the people has been properly expressed. As a party, We have participated in every election in the Fourth Republic, and we of accepting results of elections whenever we have believed in the integrity. As leader of the NDC, I wish to serve notice that we shall do all our parts to ensure that our country remains peaceful and that the electoral process proceeds smoothly. But, and a big but, let nobody assume that we will accept the results of a flawed election. All citizens of Ghana are entitled to vote. Our citizenship is clear. I say much.
Now, Education Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh says the President has set up a special committee under the Office of the Senior Minister to ensure a safe reopening of schools. He also adds his voice to the call for more online classroom activities. On the sidelines of the launch of a disinfection of all public and private universities, he said such efforts will ensure parents are informed about efforts of government on improving teaching as the new normal life fully resumes.
Set up a special team under the Office of the Senior Minister with the Director General of Ghana Health Service, Director General of Ghana Education Service, the Director General of the Military Logistics, the Director General, Deputy Director General of Police Welfare, the Ministry of Information, the Ministry of Local Government, to coordinate in the distribution of logistics and then ensure that schools reopening happens safely and securely. We do know that this COVID has brought into bear the need to embrace blended learning, because we are getting into a new normal. And it is imperative that the universities and all Ghana educational institutions adopt blended learning. So going forward, I do know that the University of Ghana had already taken steps in this direction. They had their Sakar platform. They want to move to the module. They have even engaged Open University UK in a collaborative manner to ensure that access to university is open to many more people. I do know that a lot is going on behind the scene. This spraying will occur in both public and private institutions. Also, not only those under the Ministry of Education, but other institutions outside the ambit of the Ministry of Education. But it's interesting that this is the first time I am hearing that bedbugs are also an issue in the universities. I did know, and we did commission Zoom Lion in our first phase to rid all secondary schools of bedbugs. Had I known, probably that job would have been extended. So it's the fact that I didn't know. But since the Vice Chancellor has said it, we'll put our heads together and see how we can help in that regard as quickly as possible. This disinfection is not the end all of it. What is even more important, the Vice Chancellor alluded to, is about the safety protocols, the social distancing that should happen, the face masks that government has also promised a set of 3 to all students.
You're live on JoyNews today with me, Daniel Daze. Coming up in business, rising cost of food items triggers a jump in May inflation rate, pegged at 11.3%. Daryl Crow has the details after the break.
We have more on that coming up later. Now, a little over 10 billion cedis may now be needed to pay off customers of defunct fund management firms. This is initial cost projection based on filed claims by identified investors at the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Commission is currently finalizing talks with the Finance Ministry to secure the required bailout to begin the payment processes soon. Director General of the Commission, Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete, tells Joy Business they are committed to paying all validated claims.
The liquidation process must end. Then liquidation proceeds will be used by the official liquidator to sort out the affected investors. But in this case, government has indicated that it would throw in some support. The only thing is that government wants to see a validated position. So we are still engaging with government to be able to determine exactly what they'll be doing in terms of providing, relief to support the affected investors. Now, when we are clear on these things, then we'll be in a position to make a definite announcement on when and how. Now, I am aware that a lot of people are hurting because some of them are pensioners, some of them are sick, and so on and so forth. And I had to go out to them. I just want to say that we are not oblivious to what people may be going through as a result of this, but we are working hard through the processes to be able to come up with something that would ease the pressure that people are facing in these times. I am confident that by the end of this month, I'll be able, or the SEC will be in a position to make a definite announcement. So by the end of this month, I believe that everybody should be clear as to what to expect and when to expect.
It's the month of June and the floods are here again. The perennial floods create a challenge not only for government but also businesses that have no insurance cover. Insurance marketer Edgar Redu says a collaboration between government and industry players is needed to handle the impact of floods.
We don't even have flood-prone areas. Almost every place is getting flooded now. Almost every place is getting flooded now. So what happens is, are we therefore going to say we are not going to provide cover for any of these places in the country? Certainly not. We have to re-engineer the whole thing again. We have to look at it. And as I said, that one, we could enter into some kind of negotiations with the policy holders that we're not going to have the normal standard flood policies, which is under the fire policy. We are now going to do it one-on-one basis. We got to negotiate it so that, look, when the claim comes, right, maybe your deductibles is going to be at a certain percentage. Or buzzwords like maybe we'll share the risk and we'll share the whatever it is, like, you understand. So in a situation like this, you are making sure that you are not getting out of business totally, okay? You're going to come back to business. However, I believe that the industry can make a special case to the government that, look, we are incurring so much losses in making sure that these other people are staying in business. So therefore, there's a need for you to cushion us so that we can also be there for them, okay? Now, one of the areas that I think of is that we may have to look at the taxes that the insurance companies are paying to the government.
More business news coming up at 1 p.m. on The Marketplace. Sports is up next.
Thanks for staying with us. It's time for sport, and we take you to our first story. Now, former Asante Kotoko defender Awal Mohammed wants government to pay the salaries of players in the Ghana Premier League. Now, the Volcator FC player believes that it will help to make the country's domestic flagship football competition a big success in the wake of the upsurge of COVID-19. Muftar Nabila Abdullahi of Joy Sports has more on the following report.
The former Kumasi Asante Kotoko defender, who has traveled across most African countries and also played in most Arab countries, believes that the government of Ghana's contribution to the Ghana Premier League will be a success. According to him, in most countries, it's the responsibility of the state to fund the salaries of players.
If you go to Ethiopia, it's the government who pay everything. So the moment the government will take care of the league, then I think we don't have problem. Yeah, not only Ethiopia, in Saudi, in Kuwait, everywhere. Yeah, they have good sponsors. Then the government also pay the salaries for players. So that's why even the Saudis, they have too much money. You can have one sheikh, you can pay whatever, but even the government are involved. So that's why we are facing problem here in Ghana.
In Ghana, many have suggested that government can contribute to the development of football by creating an enabling environment that would ensure that players are well catered for. Awal Mohammed believes that if government is able to pay the salaries of players, the league would be a success.
Only salary for players. Then after, if you want to go and play your game, your hotel bills, it's up to you. Then I think the league will be attractive. It will be more than...
The Ghana Football Association is currently courting the government of Ghana to extend its 1 billion Ghana cedi stimulus package meant for small and medium-scale enterprises to football.